Welcome to another episode of 8-Bit Keys. Today I'm going to be looking at the Yamaha PSS 125. This keyboard is from 1989 and was definitely marketed towards kids. This keyboard is delightfully primitive, and I've put together a great little multitrack song you can hear towards the end of this video. This is a square wave keyboard, so the tones it generates are very primitive, but one of the neatest things it has is this voice variator control. Let me show you how this works. Let's pick the clarinet, and then I'll try making it brighter. And then we'll make it mellow again. I've created a little animation showing what the square wave looks like, and so when you make the sound brighter, it shortens the pulse width like this. It sounds remarkably similar to the pulse wave on the Commodore 64 and the Atari Pokey chips. The long and short buttons basically change the attack and decay portion of the ADSR envelope. So let's see how we can use this to change the sound of the clarinet into something more interesting. Wow, I love the sound of this thing. Another thing that really sets this keyboard apart from its predecessor, the PSS 130, is the number of voices it has. It actually has 8 voice polyphony, which is quite a lot for a keyboard, especially a square wave keyboard with so few keys to begin with. Okay, before I could record any sounds for you, I had to deal with this problem. Notice that the only jack this thing has on the back is a power port, but I needed an audio line output. So I took the keyboard apart. I would have done this anyway just to have a look inside. Fortunately, this thing is super easy to take apart. It's surprisingly bare inside. The single chip here pretty much runs the whole thing. I went to my local Radio Shack, and then I dug through the little bins and found a cheap panel mount RCA connector. So I need to install this jack, and I'm trying to decide if I want it on the back or maybe the side. I thought it would be good to use in this recessed area on the bottom, that way the jack won't end up sticking out like a sore thumb. Actually, I think I'll put it back here on this side because look at all that extra room in this area. So it was time to get the drill out. I always start with a small bit to drill out the center of the hole and make sure I'm on target, and then I follow it up several times with slightly bigger bits. That way I don't break the plastic. Time for a test fit. That looks good. I think this is going to work out great. Next I soldered the ground wire to the little outer ring. Then I put it on and tightened down the little nut. And last, I soldered the center wire. Normally, a quick and dirty way to do this is just to connect the wires straight to the speaker itself. However, this usually results in a very hot signal, as well as can introduce noise from the amplifier. To test this out, I connected my Zoom audio recorder to the newly created line output. I noticed the signal was very hot, so I turned the gain down on my recorder all the way to the lowest setting, and as you can see, it's still very loud. So normally I might just turn the volume down in order to compensate for this problem, but this keyboard has a really irritating problem when it comes to the volume. Let me show you. Did you notice that the sound got quieter, but it also got shorter? It's not your imagination. Let me show you an animation of what's going on here. Normally, if you turn down the volume, you should expect a waveform to be reduced proportionally, like this. But for some reason, this keyboard is using some kind of cheap hack to turn the volume down, and the entire waveform is being moved down like this. Thus, as you can see, it actually affects the way it sounds, not just how loud it is. That being the case, I did not want to turn the volume down, so I decided I needed to do a proper line output modification. I located the actual line level signal on the keyboard with some poking and prodding. Then I soldered a 10 microfarad axial lead capacitor to it. I connected my new jack to this, and I followed that up with some tape to make sure nothing will accidentally get shorted out. I also decided to tape down some of these wires so they won't be rattling around the inside of the keyboard. Now I was able to connect my Zoom recorder and set the gain to a reasonable level, and as you can see, the sound is just about perfect. I was very pleased with the output quality, and the sound is very clean too. So I put together a little multi-track recording for you. Now, I wanted to do one of the songs from Ultima. However, with the 32 keys available on this keyboard, I simply couldn't get any of those songs to be playable. There simply wasn't enough keys. So I kind of created my own song, one that sounds or resembles something that you might hear in Ultima. And I hope you like it. Here it is. So a lot of people ask why I always use the same notes and chords on these little keyboards when I create my own songs. Well, the main reason is that I want to be able to have 3 different working octaves. And obviously I want some bass notes, so that pretty much means I've got to use these keys down here. And then I want to be able to have like a melody in the middle on the, in the same key, obviously. And then I want to be able to use some kind of highlight notes on, a 3rd octave. So by using these particular notes, I get 3 different octaves to work with, where if I were to use like C, D, and E, then I would only have one other octave to work with, really narrowing, what I could do with the keyboard. Well, I think this is my new favorite square wave keyboard. And I wanted to draw a few comparisons between it and some of the other similar toy keyboards. For example, the PSS 130, and I did an episode on this before, it was called Square Wave Delight. This only has 2-voice polyphony, but it has many of the same issues that this keyboard has the same number of keys. The sounds are pretty similar. Neither one had a line output, so I had to modify and put a line output on this one as well. But this one really just wipes the floor with the PSS 130, mostly because it has the ability to change the sounds with the voice variator, but also because of its polyphony. I also wanted to compare the Casio SK5. Now, a lot of people would immediately assume this is the better keyboard because it is a sampling keyboard. However, when you actually listen to the music, especially once you record it from the line output, this keyboard has a really dirty sound to it because it only produces sound at I think it's like 11 kilohertz or something really low. It might even be like 8 kilohertz. I don't know. But anyway, it's a very low sampling rate. And so this keyboard actually has a cleaner sound to it. I really feel like I can do better stuff with this old square wave keyboard than I can with the sampling keyboard, and as crazy as that sounds. So one thing to consider here is that with the sampling keyboard, it still only has 8 built-in instruments. Now granted, you can create your own, but sometimes I consider that to be cheating when it comes to showing off what a particular keyboard can do. So I don't generally use the sampling feature, because if I'm just copying an instrument from another keyboard or something like that, I might as well just be using that other keyboard. So as far as the built-in sounds are concerned, this one actually has the ability to create, because it has 8 instruments and then the ability to vary those instruments. So you really get a much wider palette of sounds with this old square wave keyboard than you do with the sampling keyboard. In fact, I like this one so much, it's going to become my new wall piece in place of its predecessor. Also, for those that are interested, as you know, I have way more than my share of keyboards, and I simply don't have the space to keep all of these. So once I'm done making videos about some of these, they need to go. And I've sold a few of them, but if you're interested in buying one that you've seen in my show, for example, then just send me an email, let me know. If you'd like, I can even autograph it for you, and then I'll ship it out for you. And so just let me know on that. As always, hope you found this episode entertaining, and thanks for watching.